ALBA from Amsterdam, blogger, speaker and ambassador at Nuxt.js and Storyblok, with a big love for Vue, Tailwind CSS and Jest. ALBA's talk is on back to full static using Nuxt and Storyblok. Today we are in a new era, where a static website no longer involves manual changes for each page, but maintains its performance benefits. Jamstack is our friend, and ALBA's going to tell us all about it and how we can combine a static generator as Nuxt.js with headless CMS and Storyblok will get the perfect cocktail. I can't wait to hear more. This sounds really exciting. Over to you, ALBA.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about how to go back to full static sites, but this time using Nuxt and Storyblok. Let's see. First of all, I want to introduce myself a little bit. My name is ALBA SILVENTE. I'm from Spain, but since 1 year ago I live in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. This month I started working as a front-end consultant in a company called Passionate People. So let's see how it goes in the coming months. The past year I started building my own website, downtrust.com, that you can see at the bottom of the slide, where I write articles about the tech stack I use in my side projects and also some tips and tricks on the things I have learned the past years. Thanks to that, I discovered the open source community and I started contributing in some projects and I started speaking at conference about the stuff I'm working on. Then, in the middle of the pandemic, the past year, the two technologies I used to build my website, Nuxt and Storyblok, asked me to be an ambassador, to join the ambassador program they have and spread the word with them. So I'm so happy to be there and I hope to do a great job. And now that you know me a little bit, let's start with the presentation. Well, before we begin, I would like to review with you the points we will talk about in this presentation. First, I want to tell you what types of websites exist according to their structure, so that we understand the reason for having several types of rendering in the modern web technologies that we have nowadays, as Vue, React, Angular, and this kind of frameworks and libraries. Then I will explain the benefits of using static sites, also what is Jamstack, that is totally related with this. And finally, we will talk about the full static version of Nuxt and the features that make our life easier, as well as the Hello CMS I use for this demo, that is a Storyblok. And at the end of the talk, I will make a small demo for you to better understand the advantages of generating a modern static site and also see the features that I will explain in the slides. Let's start. Well, types of websites. There are two types of websites according to their structure. There is dynamic page, which in the end is when a server refreshes the information that we have in our page once we call that URL. And then there is the static page, which in this case is a fixed content that will not be updated with the database or the API, but will always show you the same content unless you manually change that content again, uploading again to the production environment. Dynamic websites are less economical because they require more powerful servers to execute all those operations and refresh your HTML, whereas static sites are cheaper because you are storing plain text HTML files and that's it. And now that we know the difference between these two types, let's see what types of rendering we have today and what they provide us. Let's see. Well, the types of rendering we currently have are server-side rendering, where a server takes care of rendering your HTML, generates that HTML file for you with all the preloaded API data that delivers it to you. So in the end, you call an URL, it goes to the server renders everything with the data from the API and then delivers it to you, and that's it. Then we have the client-side rendering. This is what we know as single-page application. In this case, the HTML is generated on the client side in the browser. When we are browsing between pages, the JavaScript itself is in charge of rendering all our HTML. So in this case, we are rendering everything in the browser, and that's it. And by combining both techniques, we are talking about rehydratation. When we call an URL on the first load, it goes to the server, loads all the API data, and returns the generated HTML. But then, as you browse between pages, the redatation, the JavaScript, is in charge of rendering each page you browse. It improves both SEO and performance because you are using two totally different techniques to generate a much faster website, both in the first load and as you browse. And finally appeared the static site generator, also known as pre-rendering. Basically, it is going back to the pages of the past where we had a flat HTML, but this time we generate it with modern technologies like Nuxt and Storyblok, as I mentioned. By simply running a command like Nuxt generate in the case of Nuxt, it will generate an HTML file for each path we have on our website. Also the dynamic paths, and we will see after. And then, now we can see the benefits of having a static website. What they are? Well, the first is security. As you are not communicating with any API, there is less chance of being hacked. Secondly, we have the reliability and stability. This is because it is hosted on a global network, a CDN, with a lot of servers around the world connected through internet. And in case of failure of one of them, it can be redirected to another one. And that's a good point. Because if we have the typical 500 error in the past when a server breaks, nowadays with this CDN, we don't have that because the server itself is not there. We are running in different servers and we can just redirect to another one if it is not working. Then it also improves performance and speed since it is already pre-generated HTML and plain text is too much faster to deliver it to the user, and in addition, this global network that we talked about before allows the server closest to your city to deliver the website to you, which is much more quickly because you are closer to that server. And then the static website also benefit us when it comes to storing them, as they are HTML, plain file text. We are always storing them in super cheap places because they take up very little space. So that's cool, and we can spend less money in this, but more money in another things, like for example, the scalability. The scalability allows us to increase more than improve our bandwidth, so more people can download the website and more times also. So we are making that all the users that enter in our website can download it, and if we increase the bandwidth, we will let more people to do that. And finally, the technological advances are helping us a lot by creating static site generators like Nuxt and hosting like Netlify, which make our life more easy, and in 2 clicks you have everything you need. So it's so cool, and we need to take advantage and try it out if you didn't try it yet. And now let's see what is Jamstack. On the other hand, this concept gave name to the new fashion of generating static sites with this modern technology like Nuxt, Netlify, and Storyblok. This term is known as Jamstack because it's a web development architecture. It is a set of best practices which allows us to have better performance, better security, lower costs, and higher productivity. The word Jam refers to JavaScript in terms of the static site generator that will be Nuxt in this demo, exactly. The API that we are going to use to get our data for our project, which in this demo it's a Hello CMS called Storyblok, and the precompiled markup, which is what a static site is based on, basically the HTML file we already generate. And this concept was invented by the creators of Netlify, which is a hosting service for storing this kind of websites. So you can imagine that they have this problem nowadays and all the days where they are working. So they need to set up a new term or concept that always have relation to the stuff we are doing. So Jamstack was born, and that's it. And now that we have all the concepts, let's see how Nuxt, since the version 2.14, start to generate full static sites. Well, in this section, I will show you the new features Nuxt brought us in that version, so you can understand why I choose it as my static site generator. Well, we have a configuration file in Nuxt called Nuxt config.js, where we specify what type of rendering we want to have. In this case, setting target, that is the property we need to change. Changing it to static, it will generate an HTML file for each route when we run the command Nuxt generate, but also will load a payload file for each route with all the data you have in your API, but mock. So you will have it in your page while you are navigating. You are not calling the API, but it's in a different file, so it will improve a lot the performance, because you don't need to load all the HTML with all the data, just the template of the HTML, and then the data will be asynchronous loading, but all the data is already in your page. So it's a static site, but with a modern technology, basically. And in this version, they introduced 3 life-saving features that you will see that save our lives. The first one is Smart Nuxt Generate. Why smart? Because in the end, if you don't change the code, when you go to upload the project, it will only reload the API data, but it won't generate the project again. So it will make the upload much faster if you don't change the code itself, a component or whatever. Then they also add the crawler. A crawler, as the name suggests, what it does if you have a dynamic page, that you can have many more paths that you can have defined in the actual code. For example, a slug page that you have for your articles. As it's ultimate a template, the command will be so smart as to generate an HTML page for each path without you having to specify them by hand in the configuration file. So it's saving you time writing down the articles as slugs. When you want to generate these articles, it just go to the API and get all this information for you. In the old days, when I started creating my website, you had the format to generate your page, but it couldn't be full static because you had to put by hand all the paths you want to generate. And of course, that was unsustainable, and now it does it by itself. That is the things we love from Nuxt, that makes everything by itself. And on top of that, they have added a new feature, which means that by setting a query as preview a boolean to true, you will be able to see your page with the new API data before you upload the project itself. So we will see that in the demo, and you will see that it's so nice, because you can see the preview of your changes without upload to the whole world. So it's quite nice. And then, in order to create your own content, you will need an API, or in this case, a LCMS. And that's why I want to introduce you to Storyblok. Well, Storyblok is a LCMS. And what is a LCMS? Well, it is a content management system, as we all know, as WordPress could be, but this time without the appearance theme section that we have in WordPress, that you have your frontend there and you need to add the frontend to your content management system. Now your front end is going to be totally separated, and the Hello CMS is going to be an API that you are going to call to collect that content. And you will ask me, why Storyblok if we have a lot of Hello CMS nowadays? Well, I have a lot of reasons, but these ones are the most useful for me. Because it has a visual editor that everybody understands, because it is made for the user and not only for the developer, because it has reusable blocks where you can create your own component in the panel and add edit content throughout that component. You can also create custom file types. It doesn't always have to be the input text type. You can create an e-reader or cool stuff with the plugins. Then there are the translations that allow you to translate your site in 2 clicks in any language, because you can add the language and that's it, and it will create all the ecosystem for you, and it's amazing. And you can also have a workflow, which means imagine that a person wants to create content but doesn't have access to publish that content. One person can review it, and when everything is all right, you can publish it, and that's it. Then you also have the activity log, which allows you to see all the content you have done in other versions, to see what you have changed, or just who has changed what, if you want to see how many people start writing content in some page or so, whatever. In addition to that, they have also added a CDN service for images. What this do? Well, you want to resize your image for mobile, or you want to change the format. You can call their CDN service, and you don't have to rely on third parties like Ordinary or whatever you use. You already have it integrated into your Hello CMS. So that's a good point, and we can use it without dependencies, and that's cool. And then the basic functionality that all the Hello CMS has, such as access control, having users with different roles and permissions, and additional security with backups, because we need backups for our websites, obviously. And then, now that we have all the content that we are going to talk about in this presentation, let's see the demo so we can take a look at the actual code and see how it is. Okay. Well, let's start by the code. If we see this code, okay, we will see the Nuxt config file, and we see the target static. The target static is saying to the yarn generate command that it will run all our files as HTML per render. So we are telling here the type of rendering we explained before. And then if we run the yarn generate command, we will see that I didn't change anything, if I remember correctly. Well, I actually changed the code, so it's generating all the files for us. And we can see this example, because now when we are generating all the HTML files again. And not only the API data. But when I run it again, now when this finished, well, you can see that all the routes are generated again because I changed the code. But if we run again yarn generate, you will see that it's skipping all this process that we see before, and now it's quicker because we didn't change anything in our code. So it's just calling to the API data to redirect our HTML files. And that's so cool. And then we have the preview. I told you that you have just to create a plugin in the plugins folder of the project. And while creating a plugin, you will see that you have access to the context itself of Nuxt. And this context has a function called enable preview. If we put our query with the preview boolean that I told you, we can just run this function, execute this function, and it will update your data in real time. So let's see in the project, for example. Oh, one moment. Okay, is this one. Okay. So here we have our page of benefits. Okay, it's in Spanish because I have two versions of the website in Spanish and English. Okay, so we go to our benefits in our panel of Storyblok and we change our title, for example, new title, and we save it and we publish. Okay, now if we go to our page without the boolean, we will see that we have hosting instead of our new title. But what happens if I add the boolean? You will see the new title, but it's not there, it's just a preview. And that's quite cool because you want to check that everything starts working fine in your production environment without breaking anything, and you can test how it looks. And basically that's the preview, and you see it. And now that we are in the panel, we can see a little bit how Storyblok works. For example, when we create components itself, it detects what components is and open the content you can fulfill. And you will see that this content is like block or blur is because I have this content only allowed in the English version of the website. So you can't change this icon in the Spanish version. So that's so cool for the translations. Is the best thing I ever taste. And then, for example, now that we have our text, but we only have this change with the preview boolean, let's upload it to see the change. What we can do, deploy the site directly. We deploy the site without any changes to our code, just clicking a button, because obviously we have the develop branch that every time, or the master branch, every time we push changes, Netlify will run it for you because it's always listening. But obviously when we want to change only because we change our API, we need to run the manually the deploy, obviously. Or we can make maybe have actions or whatever you do when to read that your API has changed. You can do that also. that would be pretty cool. And then if you have interest and you want to see the demo, you can go to this URL and see the live demo, or just go to GitHub Downtrowse and search for the GitHub repository where you can see how it is built and what I have done to have the connection between Nuxt and Storyblok. I think it will be pretty interesting. And now that it's published, we can go and refresh, and we will see new title, and it's there, and that's it. I hope you like the demo, and thank you for attending. You can find me in all my social networks at Downtrowse, and also my website downtrowse.com, where you can see all the talks I'm doing or the articles I'm writing. And wherever you want, you can contact me and we can stay in touch. So thank you so much and have a nice day.
ALBA, what a fantastic talk. Thank you very much for being part of this year's conference. I just wanted to pop up and prompt our audience to give you a huge round the world round of applause.
ALBA, what a great talk. Thank you so much for that. It was really interesting. I see lots of questions in the chat. I have a question for myself, but we'll only do that question if we get time. Let's have a look at the chat and see what we've got. So people are really excited. They love the talk. You had over 120 people in this talk. So I think that's just absolutely amazing. So let me scroll up to the questions, and anyone watching, if I missed your question, please do copy and paste it in, and hopefully I will not miss it the second time around. So Tristan asks, does anyone know if Nuxt within the static target will generate all dynamic pages? I don't know Nuxt, so hopefully that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. In the past versions, we don't have this dynamic page scroller that makes the dynamic pages for you statically, and you have to do it manually. But now in the last versions, we have this crawler, so we can just add the target static and will generate every page we have in our Hello CMS API REST, wherever. So it will read the Slack view and will generate all the static pages that are in that Slack. So you don't need to type the name of each route nowadays.
Well,
so it's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. That sounds great. So another question from Tristan: is there any way, like in Next.js, to specify the dynamic pages to be static generated? But I think that's, you just answered that, right? I think it's a similar question. Again, I'm not familiar with Nuxt and Next, so I'm not sure if it's a similar question or different.
Yeah, the idea of Nuxt is that it was also server-side rendering. We have everything in Nuxt. You can choose between server-side rendering, static site generator, or whatever. But Next is specified on a static site generation. So I think it will have this feature, otherwise have no sense because it only allows you to have a static generator. So I think it will have this feature for sure. I didn't test it because I don't know React, but I'm pretty sure it has.
That makes sense. You've got Samuel giving you a shout out. Level up. Thank you very much for that, Samuel. Let's have a look. And from Gift as well, giving you some support too. Gift's just learned about the preview mode. Not sure how I've missed that in Nuxt.js docs. So that's awesome. For anyone who missed that, do you want to give a quick highlight to what the preview mode is?
Yeah, the preview mode is just you have a plugin in your plugin section of Nuxt, and you write down a function that is calling the function that has Nuxt inside, enable preview. And when you add this query, preview equal to true, it will show you how it will be the static generated page before pushing your project again. So it will call the API to show you the new data, but it's not live yet. So you can see how it looks and then just click deploy and we'll generate the static page again.
That's awesome. I definitely need to check that out. That sounds great. Another question from Tristan: if Storyblok is used by my clients to manage content and provide visual editor, does Storyblok generate view components code?
Not at the moment. You need to write down your code, but obviously it has a lot of helpers, modules. For example, the Storyblok view it just help you. For example, if you have a field that is risk test that is generating dynamic text, for example, the H2 tag, this kind of tags, you can use it to do it without having to write down all this stuff. So there is like modules and plugins that helps you to develop quickly, but the view code, you need to do it. It's not like that at the
Okay,
moment.
makes sense. And I think a second part to their question is how to hand off from design to development. Any plugins that you recommend or any process that you would recommend?
Well, I know that some people are working on Figma plugin that will generate the structure of the Storyblok bar from the design, but at the moment it's in progress, so we just need to wait. And I really like this idea, and I want to test it. But at the moment, what I'm doing is just if you have a design, you have a structure of your components defined, so you can just get the content that is repeated and create your dashboard with that. I'm making it manually, but obviously with a well-structured design.
That makes sense. Okay, that sounds good. And looks like things are going to be really interesting later this year as all these different projects and plugins all come together. So let's have a look. Oh, I see Samuel's answering some questions as well, which is great. Let's have a look. Now, I think that's the questions from the YouTube chat. I'm just going to check the Gather Town. Again, no more questions there. Maybe there is time for my question now. I don't know how much time we have left for questions. So I'm new to Nuxt.js and Storyblok. Can I use it with React? Angular is I'm a big fan of Angular. Can it be used with other tools like that as well?
Yeah, of course, each library or framework has another framework in the top that is making all this job for the static site generator. So for React, you have Next, but also you have Gatsby, I think. But I don't know if it's render everything in static, but I think so. So you have a lot of frameworks that leverage your framework or library to have these static generator pages. And I think is the future because it's cheaper. So everyone can do it because it's easy to do, because obviously this static site generator also makes things for you to make it easier the development. And then you have hostings that are helping you to do it everything so quickly with just a deploy button, and that's it. So I think it's the future because everyone will understand how to do a website. And today is so important with this COVID situation.
It's true. It is going to be interesting. We are lowering the barrier to entry for people to get into web development, which I think is just amazing. I think it's great. There's so many awesome tools out there, and so many of them open source as well, which is awesome, which is great.
Yeah.
So many services that offer a generous free tier as well, so people can get started and see if it's something they like, and then move forward further as well. So that's awesome. I don't think we've got any more questions. I can't think of any more difficult ones, but everyone watching, don't forget to go follow ALBA on socials. And if you do have any questions, do go reach out on Twitter, and do ask the question publicly, because then other people can learn from the question and the answer. It saves ALBA repeating it to like 100 different DMs when probably 90% of the questions are probably the same.
Yeah.
So that makes it just a bit more easier, allows us to scale more, which is great. But thank you so much again for that talk. And we'll see you in Gathertown. Will you be around for some time today? People can go and say hi to you.
Yeah, of course. I like
Awesome.
Gathertown. Yeah.
Awesome, because Storyblok has a little area as well, so they can probably find you and your colleagues at the virtual stand. That's the one I was
Nice.
thinking of. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your talk again, Alba.
To you. Thanks.
Bye.